This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. This is an episode of a multi-part series of the Living Asset site, and this one is the concept, or works with, last time we heard about the issue of the fear of rejection. We're now going to be a fear of rejection, fear of looking foolish. Now we're going to talk about the fear of failure. This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm your voice of Respectonomics, which is the background, the umbrella for the living asset. And we call it the living asset because the living asset is a portrayal of the human being. Normally, I would be accompanied with my co-host, Sarah Benton. She's not able to with us today. So I will attempt to give you a unilateral opinion about the arts and the risks of failure. All of us have failed. It's one of the things that you can make into every human dimension. You can say that the human being has fallen, you can say the human being has failed, and you can say that the human being is fallible. So before we go any further, let's all agree that we're all the same. The problem with fear of failure is many of us have these remembrances of how we failed. It could be as straightforward as failing a test or an exam. It might be failure in some design. It might be failure in a relationship. But we all have these failures that frankly produce pain. And when we find ourselves in a place where we've experienced pain and suffering, we would traditionally, characteristically, what we do is we walk away from it. We take avoidance. Well, the problem with taking avoidance is we can be also ignoring and taking apart ourselves from some great opportunities. So it's important to understand fear of failure for what it is. Fear of failure is a result of actually doing something. So if you don't experience failure, one could arguably say in a sort of an equation, well, in that case, we're not doing something, we're not doing anything. So failing is a direct corollary to activity, and we encourage activity because that's where we get new ideas, new growth, prosperity, innovation, and all the connectivities of life. Understanding, therefore, that we have all been failed at some point, we should also remember that we're all the same. None of us is different. And then we can also add to that, that as we believe and or understand how we have failed, it's sequential to say, well, I will continue to fail because in continuing to doing, there will be some doings that won't work. They will fail. The interesting thing about failure is it's the commonality of failure to the human being is also one that gets avoided. How often have you received some service or product that hasn't worked? And when you find yourself explaining to the supplier that it didn't work, you get an answer like, we apologize for the inconvenience you have been caused. In fact, a far better answer would be, we failed. And the reason that is because it's an absolute, it doesn't have any prevarications, it doesn't have any additions, editorials. And also, when somebody tells me that they have failed, I can look in the mirror and say, hello, I've been there too. So failure in itself is something we should just accept as being part of the stepping stones to all of the successes and enjoyments that are available to us. However, once we understand then that failure is a learned experience, we also need to de-learn it to get it out of the way. Well, frankly, one of the things is even just identifying failure for what it is. It's a stepping stone. Secondly, the pain that we've experienced in the past is not a good enough, should we call it a rationale or an excuse, to prevent us from doing another activity. We should, of course, be always trying to do something new and different. And the answer is that if we experience failure and it's hurt us, let's deal with that hurt. It's a sense of dealing with the trauma. There are a number of ways of dealing with fear of failure. One of them is the art of journaling. Journaling is one of the most powerful tools available to us. I'll give you an example. If you've been to a hotel, motel, or something, and you got terrible service, and you get a piece of paper out and you write down on it, this is the worst motel I've ever been in. I'm going to make sure that all my 23 best friends know about it, and I hope nobody ever comes here again. And you write this furious letter. And then when you've written the letter, you look at it and you scrunch it up and throw it into the wastepaper basket. And the point of that story is this: writing is a very good way of collating our inner feelings with our realities. So that when we write a journal, and all a journal is, what did I do? Have you ever noticed that the greatest people in history wrote journals? The Roosevelts, the Pearsons, the Churchills, all wrote biographies. They were all basically a glorification of an expansion of what did I do? So when we write what did I do, that in itself is constructive. And then you write down what did I feel about what I did? And when we do that, so you write down, I tried to do something, whatever it was. What did I feel about it? Well, I'm glad I gave it a try because I've now realized there's a better way of doing it or whatever. But you allow yourself that freedom to express to yourself that it was worth trying, that it is also worth continuing, and you've given yourself a sense of how you felt about that activity. And often, here's a very interesting truth about journaling. We can engage ourselves in things that we think aren't enjoyable, but when we actually write the journal and say, this is what I did, what did you feel about what I did, you actually come out with, I'm glad I did that. But that was an activity 10 seconds ago you said you didn't enjoy doing. It's an extraordinary, almost a contradiction. The things that we enjoy doing, maybe we don't feel so good about them afterwards. On the other hand, the things that we think we're not going to enjoy doing, when we do them, we do get satisfaction from them. So when you look in the sense of failure, look at it as a continuing part of the continuum of life, and look at it that it's what everybody does. And the art of journaling is the way of bringing together the activity with the consequence and the feelings and the sense of, yes, it's really worth going on, and failure is only the stepping stone. I rest my case.